Rueben Bain would be a perfect pick for the Tennessee Titans in the first round. But what should happen after that? I'll show you in today's mock draft edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we are going to do a 7-round mock draft to continue my perfect offseason week for the Tennessee Titans. We've gone through the roster decisions. We have talked about free agency. Now I'm going to show you what I think a perfect draft would look like for the Titans, and it starts with Rueben Bain in the first round. Before we dive in, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there. Tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Again, the Titans are about to start making roster cuts. They're going to start signing free agents. The draft is right around the corner. If you want to stay as up to date, as informed, and as entertained as a Tennessee Titans fan could possibly be, make sure that you stay locked in with the #1 Tennessee Titans podcast, Locked On Titans. But with that being said, again, Rueben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami, would be a perfect selection for the Tennessee Titans at number 4, and I am continuing to be convinced that he will be available. I think it's going to go Fernando Mendoza at number 1, Arvell Reese, number 2, to the New York Jets, Francis Mwaga or Spencer Fano, an offensive tackle, to the Arizona Cardinals at number 3, which sets up the Tennessee Titans to really have a pick of a lot of great options. But I think if Arvell Reese is off the board, the best option available is Rueben Bain. Rueben Bain is my number 2 player in the entire draft behind Arvell Reese. And you could make the argument, and a lot of you guys do, that Rueben Bain is actually the better pick for the Titans than Arvell Reese is, because what he could mean to the defense. He is a prototypical big-bodied. Now, he may not be the tallest. He doesn't have the longest arms, but the way that he plays is the prototypical mentality and skill set for Robert Saleh's wide 9 physical edge rushers in a 4-man front. They have to set the edge on the defense, have to be physical against offensive tackles and tight ends. Rueben Bain plays with his hair on fire. Again, maybe not prototypical size, but prototypical play style. He's only 6'2". He's only got 31-inch arms, which is very short. There's no doubt about that. For NFL standards, that's incredibly short arms. But he's 270, 280 pounds. And again, for a guy his size, incredible power in his game. Moving offensive linemen all over the place, taking running backs down to the ground. For a guy his size, again, great bend. Is he as bendy as, Von Miller or something like that? No, he's not Harold Landry running the loop, doing the bend around the arc. No, he's not that. But you could see on tape, he bends underneath offensive linemen. And for a guy who's 6'2", 6'3", 280 pounds, to have the bend and the dip that he has against offensive linemen, I honestly think it might be an advantage for him to be that size and have that kind of bend, because a lot of offensive tackles in the NFL are 6'6", 6'7". Like Rueben Bain would have destroyed Will Campbell in that matchup because Campbell's so tall but also has short arms. Bain has better dip and bend than you would think. And for me, Bain is way better of an option than David Bailey because he does actually have that bend. David Bailey does not have bend. He has no ankle flexion. He has no flexibility in the hips. He doesn't bend underneath offensive linemen. You can't just win with your hands consistently at the NFL level when you're David Bailey's size and you're 240 pounds. You have to be able to use your speed, and David Bailey just doesn't have that bend. So I get power, strength, size to set the edge against the run, and I get bend. I get elite hand technique. Rueben Bain is excellent with his hands. He has every move in the book: ghost, cross chop, power, long arm. Like, he doesn't even have long arms and he knows how to use them. Give me a guy that plays with reckless abandon, is incredibly physical, will dominate his opponent from a physical standpoint, but also has pass rush technique, every move that you need in the bag, also good against the run. Is he a true speed rusher on the outside? No. No, he's not. Is he a guy who's going to be great at shedding blocks if people get into his chest? No, he doesn't have long enough arms. His margin for error can be a little bit slimmer because he doesn't have the long arms, because he doesn't have the elite speed around the corner. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Rueben Bain is an elite prospect like a Myles Garrett or I would even say Abdul Carter was a better prospect than Rueben Bain. I don't really think that that's arguable, quite frankly. But in this draft class, with the options available and in the mock draft that I did, where it went Mendoza, Reese, Muaga, I would sprint to the podium to take Rueben Bain. It would not even be close. The only guy that I would say is a slam dunk at that point in time is Rueben Bain. Yeah, I could have taken David Bailey. Again, I will continue to say, I think David Bailey is too stiff to be as good of an edge rusher as a lot of you guys think he's going to be. He's small at 240 pounds, 6'3", 6'4". He's got longer arms than Rueben Bain. He's good with his hands as well. But the way that David Bailey wins in college, I don't think is as translatable to the NFL as the way that Rueben Bain wins. And Rueben Bain is a safer pick, in my opinion. He's a guy who you know what you're getting from him. And in Robert Saleh's defense, having that big, physical, wide defense, I think David Bailey would be better suited as an outside linebacker in a 3-4 and more of a guy who's speed rushing with 2 feet and no hand in the dirt. Rueben Bain's putting his hand in the dirt and demolishing him. So I like Rueben Bain significantly more than David Bailey. That would be my pick here. But I also had to consider offensive weapons, right? Cam Ward needs offensive help. And Jordan Tyson is by far my number one wide receiver. I know that all of you guys are worried about the injuries. I'm going to continue to say he came back from the ACL and he played fantastic afterwards. So I'm not worried about the ACL. He had a collarbone injury. That is a freak accident that is unrelated to his legs. He had a hamstring injury that was in the opposite leg, not even the ACL leg. And all of the best wide receivers in the NFL deal with a hamstring injury at one point in time or another. So I would go with Jordan Tyson if Bain and Reese were both gone. If the Titans trade back, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Love make a little bit more sense, and David Bailey would make sense there as well. I'll get more into my hype, happy, hate ideas when it comes to the Titans' first-round pick as we get closer to the draft. But again, in this scenario where it's Mendoza, it's Arvell Reese, it's offensive tackle, I'm running up to the podium to take Rueben Bain. So if you're looking at a perfect Tennessee Titans offseason and a perfect Tennessee Titans mock draft, in my mind, it has to start with one of the edge rushers at number 4, and it has to be Arvell Reese, Rueben Bain, or Jordan Tyson. And to me, Bain, slam dunk pick here. And if we get Trey Hendrickson in free agency, like I talked about, having Hendrickson on one side and Bain on the other, boy, with Jeffrey Simmons in the middle, we are going to destroy quarterbacks and offensive linemen. But the Titans absolutely have to add playmakers on day 2, and that doesn't just mean on the offensive side of the ball. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, looking at a perfect mock draft as part of my perfect off-season week. Remember, on Monday, we looked at the totality of my work. On Tuesday, we looked at the roster decisions. Yesterday, we looked at free agency. Today, we're doing a mock draft. Tomorrow, I'm going to go over what has to happen internally on the depth chart for the Titans to make it to the playoffs. Again, all of this setting up for the Titans to make a playoff push. But on day 2, the Titans need to add some playmakers. And that just doesn't mean on the offensive side of the ball, you can add a playmaker on defense. And when we get to the Tennessee Titans second round pick, that is exactly what I am going to do. I had a lot of options here. There were wide receivers available, like Chris Bell, who's coming off an ACL injury out of Louisville. Jeremy Bernard coming out of Alabama. Could have went with a cornerback like Keontae Scott out of Miami, or D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana. But I went with a cornerback that I think has the ability to be the best cornerback in this entire draft class and turn into an outright superstar. And it's Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina, 5'11", 190 pounds, 32-inch arms. He's 21 years old, still a very young guy. He is just a twitched up athlete. And when you combine twitchy athlete with great length, a guy who's very good at press bail coverage. That's not press man where you're staying on him. That's you're going to press and then you're going to bail into a zone. That's good in cover 3. That's good in cover 4 quarters. What does Robert Saleh do the most in his scheme on defense? Cover 3, cover 4 quarters. So I think that Cisse is a great scheme fit. Honestly, he's not the talent that this player is, but I think there's a lot of similarities in their game, and it's Sauce Gardner. And who was picked by the New York Jets? Sauce Gardner. So put 2 and 2 together there. So with the twitch as an athlete, the length of the arms, the ability to be disruptive at the catch point and knock balls away, he's willing to get in there and play and run defense. Is he the best tackler? No, he's not. He's 190 pounds. He needs to put some mass on his frame, get up to 195, 200. I think he can do that. But he is willing in run defense. He's willing to come up and tackle and be aggressive. So good at the catch point to disrupt wide receivers, fits in the scheme, twitchy athlete, great length, young, long arms. There's so much to like. But again, I will be honest, with Brandon Cisse, there are some concerns. He is slim. He is a slender guy, and he's got to put some more mass on his frame. But I go back to Sauce Gardner is a very skinny guy, all right? The NFL is getting skinnier, okay? So I'm less concerned about that than maybe some others would be. The one thing that is a concern for me is he just doesn't have a lot of interceptions. Now, he's good at the catch point to knock away a pass or disrupt a wide receiver, use his length and his ball skills and all that, but actually creating interceptions and taking the ball away, he only had 2 interceptions in college. So do you really want to take a guy who isn't going to create turnovers? That is a concern, but everything else he brings to the table, I think you get him in the right scheme, you get him with better technique, he's going to be a guy who the interceptions come to him. And at the end of the day, I would love interceptions, but I would rather have a guy who just makes sure his guy doesn't catch the ball, right? That's really what the job is here. And again, he's willing to play and run defense, but his form as a tackler is not very, he's over aggressive, shoots up, tries to knock guys down, doesn't really wrap up with form, but that's a defensive back for you. You know, are we really wanting our corners to wrap up like linebackers? I would rather the guy be great in coverage, which he is. His technique and press, again, this goes back to the strength concerns. He needs to add mass. He needs to add strength to be able to actually jam wide receivers at the NFL level and knock them off their route. He's going to have to add some strength and be better with his technique in press coverage. But everything he brings to the table, the arms, the twitch, the ball skills, the scheme fit. I think Brandon Cisse is an excellent pick. I think he's going to be a very good cornerback in the NFL. My next pick, though, is where the playmaking really comes in. Really comes in. I love this guy. I'm going to be on this guy. I think he's a perfect fit for the Titans. If they don't get Wan'Dale Robinson in free agency, this would be an absolute slam dunk. At pick 66, I'm taking Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver out of Georgia, played at USC. When he played at USC as a freshman, he was better than Mekhi Lemon. Okay? So you could all talk about Mekhi Lemon, and he's going to go in the first round, but Zachariah Branch was better than him when they played together. Also, Branch just has the explosiveness, the wiggle, the yards after catch ability, can catch a short pass and take it to the house. The Titans don't have anybody on the team who can do that right now. Io, Ridley, DK, those guys are not yards after catch guys. They're just not, okay? Zachariah Branch, that is his game. He is a yards after catch king. And that was put on display at Georgia, where, quite frankly, they just threw him screens nonstop. And that turns into one of the concerns about Zachariah Branch is, can he actually run routes? Can he actually be a real wide receiver? I think that he can. It's not his fault that Georgia only wanted to use him 5 yards and less. The line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage to 5 yards. Like, it's not his fault that that's what they asked of him in college. I think he absolutely can be a good route runner. I think he's going to be a perfect route runner on their short little option routes that Brian Daboll uses in the Erhardt-Perkins offense. I think he would be a great fit, and I think he's capable of a lot more. And that yards after catch ability, that explosive nature, the production that he's had, the character, he is an elite football character in the locker room. This is not a character concern, this and that. No, this is an absolute monster in the locker room, a guy that you want as part of your team and part of your culture, okay? Now, again, concerns. He's 5'9". He's 175 pounds. He doesn't have great size, but I don't care about that. He's not going to be my X wide receiver. He's not going to be playing on the outside. He is going to be my slot wide receiver. And again, I go back to scheme. Brian Daboll, 12% RPO rate last year with the Giants, the most in the NFL. Who is going to be really, really great on RPO bubble, on RPO stick, RPO slant, quick, short routes, get the ball in his hands, make a play? Zachariah Branch. It would be an absolute home run for the Tennessee Titans. I think it would be a fantastic pick in round 3. Now, finally, we talk about playmakers. At safety, the Titans have a lot of safeties that are better going forward. Kevin Winston, better going forward. Amani Hooker, better going forward. Mike Brown, better going forward. None of them are better at going backwards. And in a system where you play cover 4 match, where one of your safeties is going to go forward and match a crossing route, and the other safety is going to have to run deep with the vertical route, or in cover 3, where you have to have a deep free safety back deep, the Titans don't really have anybody who can fill that skill set and play center field back deep. Amani Hooker doesn't have the speed. Kevin Winston isn't built for that at 6'3", 200 pounds. That's not what he should be doing. Genesis Smith, the safety out of Arizona, is a pure, deep free safety, center fielder in the back with range, with speed, with ball skills. Look, he's 6 foot, 200 pounds, but he's not going to be good against the run. But as a third safety for the Titans, who comes in their nickel packages, when Kevin Winston plays at the nickel slot and Amani Hooker plays dime linebacker, when Amani Hooker and Kevin Winston are both in the box or on the second level, who is going to be the deep back safety? They need somebody to do that role, even if he isn't a starting safety right now, and that is Genesis Smith. I think it would be a perfect fit to be that third safety, to play in the back end and erase anything over the top. at pick 101 to start the fourth round, I think that's a real playmaker who, again, may not be great in run defense, may not have elite strength right now, but can develop that, learn his run fits, learn more form. Robert Saleh gets the absolute best out of his safeties when it comes to run defense. He can teach him that. Let's get a guy who has that deep free safety range to take things away. So Genesis Smith, Zachariah Branch, Brandon Cisse, those are some playmakers right there to add speed and explosiveness to this Tennessee Titans football team. But now, on day 3, we need to add depth and we need to look for some big talents that just need a little bit of coaching, and Robert Saleh can give them that. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The winter games are officially here, and if you're anything like me, you're locking in for the events that you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel makes so much sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. You get the drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast. Speed skating races that are decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel Sportsbook. It's FanDuel. Play your game. Titans fans, let's cap off today's perfect mock draft for the Tennessee Titans. Again, part of my perfect off-season week where I show you what the Titans have to do to make it to the playoffs. We did roster management. We did free agency, hitting the draft today. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a full-on breakdown of what the depth chart looks like for the Titans after all these moves that I've made this week. Do want to remind you guys to get signed up for the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. You're going to get ad-free versions of the podcast in your podcast feed. You're going to get added to a Locked On Titans group chat with a bunch of other Locked On Titans everydayers where we all yuck it up every day about everything that's going on in the NFL with the Titans. I can't wait for free agency, the draft to get here for us to all talk about that stuff. You're missing out if you're not in the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club in the Locked On Titans group chat. But again, we're going into day 3. We kicked day 3 off with Genesis Smith, the safety out of Arizona, at pick 101. But as we get further into day 3, it's time to add some high-end talents that could change this team as well. And I made a little bit of a trade up the board. I went from pick number 40, and I added pick number 238. And I moved up to 132 to get the best running back on the board and a guy that I was worried about losing, Mike Washington out of Arkansas. I'm in love, folks. I'm in love. I'm smitten with Mike Washington. It's going to be hard for me to not pick Mike Washington in all of my mock drafts. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds, 34-inch arms. His stiff arm is devastating because his arms are so long. He runs with such power. He's got great home run speed. He's also agile. He can cut and move back and forth. He's not, he runs a little high because he's a taller running back at 6 foot, but he's not somebody who doesn't have the agility to make cuts and to move around. He can get past guys. So to have that home run speed, that agility, that size, that kind of stiff arm, and he reads blocks very well. He's really good at reading the blocks, setting up his offensive linemen, setting up defenders, just got really good IQ. Now, I'm going to be honest about Mike Washington. Why would he be available at pick number 132 if he's the second coming of Derrick Henry, like you're making him sound, Tyler? Well, his acceleration is not quite great. It takes him, like Derrick Henry, I'm not comparing him to Derrick Henry, but just saying, it does take him a little bit of time to get the wheels churning, like a train. It takes a second, but once they're churning, he is flying. Now, there are some who have watched him in college who think, he needs to be more aggressive as a runner and a blocker, especially in between the tackles. For a guy who's 220 pounds, 6 foot tall, he doesn't run quite as hard as he should in between the tackles. But to me, that's a coaching thing. That's showing him on tape, run harder here. And again, not to compare him to Derrick Henry too much, because he's not Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's a unicorn. But Derrick Henry wasn't running very hard for the Titans in his first couple of years. Year 1, year 2, Derrick Henry looked like a bust. Halfway through year 3, Derrick Henry looked like a bust. And then he talked to Eddie George on the phone, and Eddie George told him, you need to run like your career is on the line, because it is. And all of a sudden, he ran harder and turned into one of the greatest running backs in the history of the sport, right? Now, again, I am not saying that Mike Washington can be that, but I am just pointing out that guys can learn to run harder in certain scenarios. As a blocker, he's got to learn to work harder as a blocker. No doubt about that. And I will say this, he's had 8 fumbles in the last 2 seasons total. Not 8 in each, but 8 total in 2 seasons. That has to be cleaned up, okay? That has to be cleaned up. But in round 5 at pick 142 or round 4 at pick 132, to get a guy with that size, that speed, that home run ability, that sort of potential, and you add him to Tyler Algier and Tajay Spears, that is an awesome running back room. And then next year, maybe you have Mike Washington as your number 1 lead running back with Spears in the final year of his rookie deal, and there you go. You know what I mean? I think that could be an option for the Titans moving forward. But maybe a pick that I like even better. At pick 142, Harold Perkins, the linebacker out of LSU. 6 foot, 220 pounds. He is a freak athlete. He is about to dominate, truly dominate the NFL Combine. Like, freakazoid athlete. And I think that might move him up the boards. Like, he'll probably be a top 100 pick, in my opinion. Not only is he a freak athlete, but he's versatile. He's played in the back end. He was an edge rusher early on in his career. Now he's an off-ball linebacker. He is great in zone coverage at finding guys, disrupting passing lanes. He can run with a tight end up the seam because he's got the athleticism to do it. Now, when it comes to going forward, he is physical. He is violent. He is a great blitzer as well. Again, because he was an edge rusher at one point in time, his understanding of how to pass rush from the linebacker spot is huge. And with how Robert Saleh likes to have his linebackers go downhill and shoot gaps and get in the backfield, that's Harold Perkins right there. Now, he's 6 foot, he's 220. That's undersized for an NFL linebacker. But I would tell you that Fred Warner was undersized as an NFL linebacker, and with the tutelage of Robert Saleh and others, turned into the best linebacker in the NFL by far. No one's even close to Fred Warner. His run instincts do need to be better. He's played a lot of different positions. He's done a lot of different things. It's hard to truly get your instincts in a good place, but who better to teach a linebacker than Robert Saleh? He consistently, throughout every stop of his career, gets the best out of linebackers, and he cut his teeth as a linebacker coach. Now, along with the size, the instincts in the run game, he's got to tackle better. He can be over-aggressive, fly at guys. But again, when we're talking about technique, tackling, instincts, understanding of keys and how to read them, all of that stuff is coachable, in my opinion. And again, I will repeat, no better person to coach up a linebacker with immense physical talent and a great mentality out on the field than Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh and Harold Perkins, I'm telling you, folks, Harold Perkins would turn into a star under Robert Saleh. I hope they can make that happen. But my last 2 picks here they're dart throws. They always are this late in the game. But with pick 183 in the 5th round, I went with Demetrius Crownover, offensive tackle out of Texas A&M. He's 6'7", 330 pounds, 35-inch arms. That is ridiculous. Okay, he's got great size, very good at moving defensive tackles and double teams, which Brian Daboll's offensive system has some zone runs, but has a ton of power and gap runs as well, where double teaming, down blocking. And if you have a size advantage and a power advantage like Demetrius Crownover has, he plays with great effort too, which is critical to me. When you're looking at offensive linemen, they have to be willing to strain and finish and play through the whistle. I'm going to take Demetrius Crownover. I'm going to put him behind Dan Moore and J.C. Latham, and I'm going to develop him with Carmen Brasillo and see what we can get out of him. I think Demetrius Crownover would be a great development option late in the draft. And my final pick, which is a 6th round pick that I got for trading Will Levis in this perfect offseason, is Dane Key. Dane Key is a wide receiver out of Nebraska. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He runs great routes for a guy his size. Great routes. Really good route technician for a guy that big. Great hands, super reliable. He's a smart player. He's going to benefit or factor in for the Titans. I combine benefactor and benefit and factor all together. He's going to factor for the Titans on special teams, which as a 6th round pick, you want guys who could play on special teams who are big and fast. And when I say fast, I'm talking about wide receiver speed, because amongst wide receivers, Dane Key is not a burner. Okay, he's a technical guy. He's a savvy route runner. He's smart about where to sit down. He wins in contested situations with strong hands and good understanding. But he's not a freak athlete. He doesn't have elite speed. He's not a burner down the field vertically. And if he was, he would be going on day 2. You know, he doesn't give you a lot of yards after catch ability. I think he is a poor man's version of Alec Iomanner. Io is a more athletic version of Dane Key. But you get a guy like Dane Key who could play behind Alec Iomanner, who could play that X wide receiver position behind Michael Pittman Jr. Eventually, you develop Alec Iomanner to take over for Michael Pittman Jr. And then you have Dane Key to back up Alec Iomanner. And I have continued to say and will continue to say that you need big-bodied guys with great hands and big catch radiuses to go with Cam Ward, who is a bit of a gunslinger who may not be pinpoint accurate like a Tom Brady or Joe Burrow for his entire career. So whether it's special teams, size and route running, reliable hands to help Cam Ward, I think Dane Key would be a very good late in the draft wide receiver. Let me know your thoughts on my picks in this mock draft. Again, I'm going to come back tomorrow and put the whole package together and take a look at the Tennessee Titans depth chart and talk about the guys who are actually on the team right now who just need to get better to help the Titans make the playoffs. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.